Did you know medieval tapestries hold more secrets than a dragon's hoard? From the 14th to the 16th centuries, these woven masterpieces weren't just pretty pictures for grand halls. What hidden messages did they truly convey about love, desire, and power? Number 10. The act of gift-giving. In the intricate narrative spun from wool and silk, the exchange of gifts often took center stage, a silent yet profound communication woven into the very threads of medieval love tapestries. These were not mere tokens of affection, but carefully chosen objects, laden with layers of significance. Their presentation, a highly ritualized dance, understood by all in the noble courts. Imagine a scene, perhaps, from a tapestry depicting a courtly gathering where a knight, kneeling with a modest bow, extends a small, exquisitely crafted ring to a lady. The ring, in the medieval imagination, carried a weight far beyond its gold and precious stone. It was a circle, a shape without beginning or end. A powerful suggestion of eternity and unbroken commitment. The specific gem embedded within it might also whisper its own tale. A ruby, for instance, might speak of passionate emotion, while a sapphire could suggest truth and sincerity, drawing upon established beliefs about the properties of stones. That circulated widely, the pecadated be. The very act of the knight presenting it and the lady receiving it was a performance of delicate negotiation, each movement a carefully orchestrated step in the complex game of courtly love. Sometimes the gift was not an object, but a creature. Consider the frequent appearance of small, noble dogs in the laps of ladies in these woven scenes. These animals, often depicted with collars adorned with the family crest or initial, were cherished companions, and their gift from a suitor could be a powerful statement. A dog, known for its unwavering loyalty and protective nature, could symbolize the suitor's own devotion and fidelity, a promise of steadfastness. In a tapestry where a lady holds such a dog, perhaps stroking its head while her gaze meets that of a distant suitor, the dog becomes a silent witness, a living testament to the unspoken pledge between them. The dog's presence implies a domesticity, a sharing of intimate space that, in the constrained world of medieval courtly love, was a rare and treasured offering. It spoke of shared life, of constancy, and of a bond that transcended fleeting moments. Flowers, too, were frequent gifts, though often symbolic rather than physically exchanged in the tapestry itself. A rose, for example, frequently appears in the hands of a lady, or growing luxuriantly in an enclosed garden setting. The rose, especially the red rose, held a powerful position in medieval poetry and art as a symbol of profound love and beauty, often associated with Venus herself. Its delicate petals and fleeting bloom could also allude to the transient nature of beauty or the tender vulnerability of affection. A lady accepting a rose in a tapestry, or simply standing near a blooming rose bush, suggested an acknowledgement of love, a connection to the very essence of desire. Similarly, the lily, pristine and white, could denote purity and virtue, its presence indicating the honorable nature of the lady, or the chaste ideal of the love being depicted. These floral gifts were not merely decorative. They were rich in associative meaning, forming a visual language that a sophisticated medieval audience could readily understand. Books also appeared as gifts, particularly illuminated manuscripts. A knight or scholar might be shown presenting a beautifully bound volume to a lady. This was a gift of intellect and shared culture, a promise of shared knowledge and refined conversation. Such a gift suggested a deep respect for the lady's mind and a desire for intellectual companionship. A valued aspect of courtly interaction. The contents of the book itself might hint at the nature of the love. Perhaps a book of hours for spiritual devotion, or a collection of romantic poetry to express fervent admiration. The very act of presenting a book elevated the connection beyond mere physical attraction, suggesting a bond rooted in shared values and intellectual pursuits. The value of the gift was not always in its material cost, but in the gesture itself and the meaning it conveyed. A lady might offer a small, intricately embroidered purse to her knight, a token of her handiwork and a reminder of her presence in his thoughts. Such a gift made with her own hands carried a personal intimacy that a bought item could not match. It suggested dedication hours spent in quiet contemplation while stitching an investment of herself into the object. The threads chosen, the colors, the motifs, all could be deliberately selected to carry subtle, personalized messages known only to the giver and the recipient. These were objects meant to be carried close, a constant reminder of a shared secret or deepening affection. The scene from The Lady and the Unicorn series, specifically the tapestry titled A Mon Seul Désir, presents a particularly intriguing example of gift-giving and its hidden depths. While not a direct exchange of objects, the lady's actions, her choice to place or remove a necklace from a jewel box, can be interpreted as a symbolic act of choosing, of commitment, of bestowing her most profound desire. The jewelry itself, often made of precious metals and adorned with gems, served as a potent symbol of wealth, status, and the inherent value of the wearer. Choose to wear or set aside a piece of jewelry in the presence of the unicorn and the lion, creatures often associated with strength and purity, suggest a weighty decision, perhaps the ultimate gift of self. The decision to either adorn herself further, signaling her readiness for profound connection, or to remove an ornament, perhaps indicating a different kind of devotion, is an act rich with implied meaning. This act of choice becomes the ultimate gift, the giving of her sole desire, a deeply personal offering. The tapestries, therefore, did not just show love, they depicted the careful, complex rituals of its expression, where every gift, every gesture of giving, was a paragraph in a silent, captivating story. Number 9. The presence of mythological figures. Look closely at these old tapestries, and you might just spot figures straight out of ancient myths, subtle presences woven into the fabric of courtly life and romantic endeavors. These weren't just decorative additions, they carried deep, resonant meanings for a medieval audience, drawing on centuries of classical learning and poetic tradition. The most prominent among them, though often discreetly placed, was Cupid, the winged boy of love with his bow and arrow. He might appear as a small, cherubic figure hovering above a pair of lovers, or perhaps peeking from behind a tree, aiming his golden arrow at an unsuspecting heart. His presence was never accidental. It served as a powerful suggestion that the unfolding scene of courtship or blossoming affection was not merely a human endeavor, but one divinely inspired or perhaps divinely manipulated. The arrows of Cupid were understood to strike with an irresistible force, igniting love where none existed or intensifying existing passion. When you see Cupid in a tapestry, it suggests that the love depicted is both inevitable and in some sense fated, a powerful force that transcends human will. His mischievous gaze or focused aim could indicate the beginning of a romance, the moment of its deepest impact, or the powerful, sometimes irrational nature of desire. Venus, the goddess of love, beauty, and fertility, also made her subtle appearances, often embodied in the very essence of the beloved lady or hinted at through specific attributes. She might not be directly shown in her divine form, but her influence would be undeniable. A lady in a tapestry depicted with a flowing gown, exquisite jewels, and an aura of captivating grace could be seen as a mortal embodiment of Venus's allure. Presence of her symbols, the rose, the dove, the scallop shell, would reinforce this connection. For instance, a rose bush blooming exuberantly in the garden where lovers meet, or a pair of white doves cooing nearby, subtly links the scene to Venus, suggesting that the love unfolding is blessed by Huans. Medieval thinkers, even those deeply rooted in Christian theology, were well versed in classical mythology and understood these subtle visual cues. Venus represented the generative power of love, its capacity for beauty and procreation, and her implied presence elevated the love depicted from the mundane to something almost sacred in its intensity. Other figures from classical mythology, though less frequent, could also carry specific weight. Sometimes you might discern Hercules, a hero renowned for his strength and devotion, even in his arduous labors. While not a direct figure of romantic love, his struggles and ultimate triumph could mirror the trials and eventual success of a devoted lover, suggesting that true affection requires strength, perseverance, and saxophone. His implied presence could underscore the knightly virtues of courage and loyalty, qualities highly prized in courtly love. Similarly, the tale of Orpheus and Eurydice, though tragic, might be alluded to through the presence of musical instruments or specific flora associated with the underworld, subtly reminding viewers of the power of music to charm and the possibility of love's triumph over despair. Even if fleeting, these allusions were often designed for an educated audience, those who understood the classical references and could appreciate the layers of meaning they added to the romantic narrative. The mythological figures served to elevate the human drama of love to a more universal, even cosmic plane. They suggested that the emotions depicted in the tapestries were not simply personal feelings, but manifestations of ancient, powerful forces that governed the world. The anxieties, the hopes, the triumphs, and the sorrows of love were not new. They were part of a timeless human experience, echoed in the tales of gods and goddesses. For instance, the story of Apollo and Daphne, where the god's pursuit leads to Daphne's transformation into a laurel tree, might be subtly hinted at through the presence of a laurel tree in a garden setting. These mythical elements also provided a certain framework for understanding courtly love, which was itself a highly stylized and often idealized form of affection. By connecting it to the tales of the gods, the artists and patrons could give it a sense of grandeur and inevitability. Pangs of love, the longing, the devotion, all became part of a larger narrative, one that had been told and retold since antiquity. The tapestries, therefore, were not just illustrating romantic scenes. They were engaging in a sophisticated dialogue with classical tradition, using familiar mythological tropes to enrich the complex, emotional landscape. Presence of Cupid, Venus, and other subtle allusions to the mythical realm ensured that the woven stories of love were seen not just as human interactions, but as part of an enduring, powerful drama that played out across time and legend. They were visual cues, silent whispers from the ancient world, reminding viewers that the pursuit of love was an eternal dance, guided by forces far greater than mortal will. Number 8. The role of the unicorn. Among all the creatures that prance and pose in medieval tapestries, none captures the imagination quite like the unicorn. This mythical beast, with its pure white coat, cloven hooves, and single spiraling horn, appears in some of the most famous and enigmatic love tapestries, notably the Hunt of the Unicorn series and The Lady and the Unicorn. Its presence is far from accidental. The unicorn carries a profound, layered meaning that was deeply understood by a medieval audience, touching upon themes of purity, power, and the sacred. The unicorn was widely believed to be an untamable creature, fierce and wild, capable of being captured only by a virgin maiden. This legend, rooted in ancient bestiaries and reinterpreted through a Christian lens, made the unicorn a compelling symbol of purity and innocence. In tapestries depicting a lady with a unicorn, such as those in the Lady and the Unicorn series, the beast often rests its head gently in her lap or stands placidly beside her. This calm demeanor in the presence of the lady directly references the legend implying her virtue and unblemished nature. The unicorn's surrender to the maiden betures her moral impeccability, suggesting that the love she embodies or inspires is of the highest, most spiritual kind, untainted by earthly corruption. The tapestry becomes a visual testament to the lady's chastity and moral worth. Beyond its association with purity, The unicorn's horn itself held immense symbolic power. It was believed to possess miraculous healing properties, capable of purifying poisoned water and curing ailments. This belief lent the unicorn an almost divine quality, connecting it to notions of spiritual cleansing and salvation. In the context of love tapestries, the unicorn's presence might suggest that the love depicted is not just pure, but also redemptive and cleansing, capable of elevating the souls of those involved. Its horn pointing skyward or its gentle gaze could subtly indicate a connection to the divine, suggesting that the love portrayed is blessed or reflects a higher spiritual affection. The Hunt of the Unicorn series, a magnificent set of 7 tapestries, offers an even more elaborate narrative of the unicorn's role. Here the unicorn is pursued, captured, seemingly killed, and then paradoxically depicted alive and flourishing in an enclosed garden. This sequence of events, especially the death and resurrection, resonated deeply with Christian iconography. The unicorn was often seen as an allegorical representation of Christ himself, pure, persecuted, ultimately sacrificed, and then resurrected, bringing salvation and new life in the context of love. This connection is profound. It suggests that true love, like the unicorn's journey, might involve trials and suffering, but ultimately leads to a state of grace, redemption, and eternal joy. The captured unicorn in the final tapestry, surrounded by a fence in a beautiful garden, could be seen as representing not just the captured essence of purity, but also a love that has been tamed, secured, and allowed to flourish in a sacred, protected space. Chains that bind it are often interpreted not as instruments of suffering, but as gentle fetters of devoted love, a willing surrender to the beloved. The unicorn's unique nature, a creature of myth, yet depicted with such vivid detail, also speaks to the idealized nature of courtly love. Just as the unicorn was a rare and precious beast, so too was the ideal courtly love an elusive and perfect form of affection. Pursuit of the unicorn by the hunters can be seen as a parallel to the lover's arduous and often perilous quest for the lady's affection. The eventual capture of the unicorn could symbolize the successful winning of the lady's heart, a triumphant moment that secures an almost mythical bond. Tapestry known as the unicorn at the fountain often shows the unicorn dipping its horn into water, purifying it for the other animals to drink. This scene suggests the unicorn's benevolent power, its ability to bring harmony and goodness to its surroundings. In a romantic context, it could imply that the love it oversees or is part of has a purifying, ennobling effect on the lovers and their environment. It signifies a love that brings peace, health, and a sense of sacred order. Overall, the unicorn in these medieval tapestries is more than just a fantastical creature. It is a complex symbol embodying purity, divine grace, sacrifice, redemption, and the ultimate idealized perfection of love. Powerful presence elevates the romantic narratives, imbuing them with spiritual depth and a sense of transcendent beauty. The unicorn's enduring mystique ensures that these tapestries continue to captivate, offering a glimpse into the rich symbolic world where love was seen as a quest for something truly extraordinary and sacred. Number 7. Luxurious clothing and symbolic adornments. The garments worn by figures in medieval love tapestries are far from mere depictions of fashion. Every fold, every color, every pattern, and every piece of jewelry serves as a powerful communicator of status, intent, and even hidden messages within the complex dance of medieval courtly love. These were not just clothes. They were visual manifestos, carefully chosen to convey specific meanings to an educated audience of the time. The richness of the fabrics themselves spoke volumes. Silk, velvet, and brocade, often imported from distant lands, were incredibly expensive and laborious to produce. Their presence in a tapestry immediately signaled the wearer's high social standing, wealth, and sophisticated taste. A lady draped in sumptuous flowing robes of deep crimson velvet, perhaps lined with ermine fur, instantly communicated her noble lineage and the immense resources of her family. This display of material wealth was not merely boastful. It underscored the desirability of the figures, making them worthy objects of courtly affection and respect. The sheer artistry in rendering these fabrics with their textures and sheen further emphasized the luxury and refinement of the world being depicted. Colors held specific meanings that medieval audiences would have readily understood. Blue, often derived from costly lapis lazuli pigment, was associated with loyalty, fidelity, and truth. A lady in a deep blue gown might subtly suggest her unwavering devotion or the purity of her intentions. Red, on the other hand, a vibrant hue, was linked to passion, intense emotion, and power. A knight wearing a striking red tunic might be signaling his fervent desire or his courageous heart. Green, the color of nature and rebirth, could signify hope, youth, or the blossoming of new love. Yellow, while sometimes associated with jealousy, could also represent joy and cheerfulness, depending on its shade and context. The deliberate choice and combination of these colors in the garments created a silent dialogue, adding layers of meaning to the romantic narrative. Patterns woven into the fabric or embroidered upon them also carried significance. Motifs, such as pomegranates, could symbolize fertility and abundance, while oak leaves might suggest strength and longevity. Intricate floral patterns, mirroring those seen in garden settings, could reinforce themes of natural beauty and growth. Sometimes, personal or family emblems might be subtly incorporated into the clothing, serving as a unique identifier or a declaration of allegiance. For example, in the Lady and the Unicorn series, the ladies wear dresses adorned with a repeating pattern that seems to include the crest of Jean de la Viste, the presumed patron of the Tapestries. This subtly ties the scene to the family, personalizing the grand allegory and potentially hinting at the virtues or aspirations of the patron's lineage. Jewelry was another crucial element. Necklaces, rings, belts adorned with precious stones and elaborate headdresses were not just beautiful, they were packed with meaning. A string of pearls might symbolize purity or tears, while a specific gem could carry its own traditional association, as mentioned earlier, with rubies and sapphires. A lady wearing a heavy, intricately wrought gold chain might be asserting her wealth and her family's status, making her an even more prized object of affection. The way a necklace was worn, perhaps clasped tight or left loose, could also imply a certain readiness or reluctance in the unfolding romantic dynamic. Headdresses, often elaborate and towering, further underscored social standing and the care taken in presentation, signifying a woman's virtue and her place in the social hierarchy. The careful arrangement of hair and the presence of specific accessories also contributed to the narrative. Long flowing hair for a maiden might signify youth and unspoiled beauty, while a more elaborate braided or coiffed style might indicate her noble status or marital eligibility. A delicate veil, often translucent, could suggest modesty while still allowing beauty to be appreciated. Even small details like a pouch or a rosary hanging from a belt could contribute to the character's portrayal, signaling piety or practicality. Alongside their romantic role, ultimately the clothing and adornments in these tapestries were not just about aesthetics. They were an integral part of the visual storytelling. They reinforced social structures, communicated personal attributes, and conveyed the subtle nuances of courtly love where every detail held meaning. Viewers of the time would have read these visual cues, understanding the implicit messages about the figures' identities, their moral character, and their roles in the romantic drama unfolding before their eyes. The opulence of the attire reflected the idealized nature of the love depicted, presenting it as something noble, precious, and worthy of the highest regard. Number 6. The enclosed garden, hortus conclusus. The hortus conclusus, or enclosed garden, is a recurring and deeply significant motif in medieval love tapestries. This seemingly idyllic setting with its carefully tended flowers, blossoming trees, and often a central fountain was far more than just a pleasant backdrop. It was a powerful symbolic space, brimming with layers of meaning that resonated with medieval spiritual beliefs and courtly ideals, making it a perfect stage for the delicate dance of love. Historically, the concept of the enclosed garden has roots in religious texts, particularly the Song of Psalms from the Old Testament, where a bride is described as a garden enclosed, a spring shut up, a fountain sealed. This biblical reference firmly established the enclosed garden as a symbol of virginity, purity, and sacred intimacy. When transposed into secular art, particularly love tapestries, this spiritual connotation lent a profound sense of virtue and honor. The love expressed in such a setting was thus elevated beyond mere physical desire, acquiring a chaste and refined quality, even if underlying passions were implied. The very walls or fences that delineate the enclosed garden are crucial. They serve as a boundary separating this special space from the wildness and dangers of the outside world. This separation highlights the garden as a place of safety, privacy, and protection. For lovers, it becomes a sanctuary where true feelings can be expressed, secrets whispered, and intimate moments shared away from prying eyes and the judgments of court society. It implies a degree of discretion and exclusivity, vital elements in the complex, often clandestine nature of courtly love. Only those invited or deemed worthy could enter this privileged space, reinforcing the idea of chosen intimacy. Within the hortus conclusus, every element often holds symbolic weight. The lush greenery and abundant flowers speak of fertility, growth, and the blossoming of new life, mirroring the flourishing of love itself. Roses, lilies, violets, and other flowers, as previously discussed, each carried their own specific meanings. A vibrant array of blooms could signify the richness and diversity of emotions, while specific flowers might point to particular virtues or intentions. For instance, the presence of a rose might suggest passionate love, while lilies could emphasize purity. A central fountain or well, frequently depicted in these gardens, was another powerful symbol. Water, especially from a spring or fountain, was associated with life purification and sometimes spiritual cleansing. In a romantic context, a fountain could represent the source of love itself, its refreshing and vital nature. It might also symbolize the pure and flowing nature of true affection constantly renewing itself. The sound of trickling water would have further contributed to the sense of tranquility and peace within this hallowed space. The garden's manicured appearance, its orderly rows of plants and neatly trimmed hedges, contrasts sharply with the wilder, untamed forests or open landscapes sometimes seen beyond its walls. This orderliness reflects the ideal of courtly love itself, a highly structured, refined, and ritualized form of affection, far removed from raw, untamed passion. It suggests that love, when properly cultivated and contained within the bounds of honor and discretion, can achieve its most beautiful and harmonious form. In tapestries, such as the Lady and the Unicorn series, the enclosed garden forms the setting for all 6 panels. The lady and her companions, along with the mythical creatures, are always within this walled space, creating a sense of timelessness and sacredness. The very presence of the unicorn, a creature of purity and the divine, further emphasizes the sanctity of this garden. It suggests that the revelations and actions taking place within this garden are of profound spiritual and emotional significance. The animals populating these gardens, from the loyal dogs to the playful rabbits, are also contained within this sacred boundary, further enhancing the sense of a harmonious, idyllic, and protected world where love can flourish. The enclosed garden, therefore, served as a potent visual metaphor in medieval love tapestries. It represented a haven of purity, intimacy, and protection, a place where the most idealized forms of love could blossom away from the chaos of the outside world. It was a space where discretion was paramount, virtue was upheld, and the delicate rituals of courtship could unfold in a setting that blended natural beauty with spiritual significance, creating a rich tableau for the timeless narrative of love. Number 5. The power of musical instruments. The presence of musical instruments and the act of making music together in medieval love tapestries are much more than mere decorative details. They carry deep symbolic weight, reflecting the medieval understanding of harmony, persuasion, and the very essence of affection. Music in this era was seen as a powerful force, capable of stirring emotions, bridging divides, and expressing the inexpressible. When you see figures in these tapestries playing instruments or even just holding them, a subtle narrative about love, seduction, and shared connection begins to unfold. The lute, a stringed instrument with a pear-shaped body, frequently appears in scenes of courtly love. Its gentle melodious sound was associated with tenderness and intimacy. A knight playing a lute for a lady, or a lady strumming one while gazing at her suitor, conveyed a sense of refined courtship and heartfelt emotion. The act of performing music for another person was a deeply personal gesture, a skilled display meant to charm and entertain, but also to convey affection and devotion. The harmony created by the lute was often a direct metaphor for the harmony sought in a loving relationship, suggesting a perfect accord between two souls. It symbolized a shared rhythm, a synchronicity of hearts and minds. Other instruments also held specific connotations. The harp, with its ethereal sound, was often associated with divine inspiration and spiritual purity. A figure playing a harp might suggest a love that is not only earthly, but also possesses a spiritual dimension, elevating it beyond mere physical desire. Wind instruments like flutes or pipes, sometimes played by shepherds or idyllic figures, could evoke a sense of natural beauty and rustic charm, hinting at a more pastoral or innocent form of affection. These instruments, often linked to nature, connected the love story to the rhythms of the earth, suggesting a natural, unforced blossoming of feeling. The act of singing, accompanied by music, was also highly significant. While the tapestries are silent, the visual depiction of figures with open mouths suggesting song or grouped together in musical ensembles points to shared artistic expression. Courtly love poetry was often set to music, and the performance of these songs was a popular form of entertainment and communication. In aristocratic circles, a song could convey a declaration of love, a lament of longing, or a plea for affection, all through carefully crafted lyrics. In a tapestry, the shared act of making music together implies a deep bond, a mutual appreciation for beauty and art, and a harmonious union that transcends spoken words. It suggests that the lovers are in tune with each other, literally and figuratively. Music was also understood as a tool of persuasion. The myth of Orpheus, who charmed the gods and even the underworld with his lyre, was well known. In a romantic context, a suitor's musical performance could be seen as an attempt to charm or persuade the lady into reciprocating his affections. It was a non-confrontational yet powerful form of communication, bypassing direct speech to appeal directly to the emotion. The melodious strains implied by the visual could evoke a sense of yearning, joy, or deep devotion, eliciting a sympathetic response from the beloved. Furthermore, music was linked to the medieval concept of the music of the spheres, a philosophical idea that the planets in their celestial movements created a perfect harmony. This cosmic order was sometimes reflected in earthly music, suggesting that harmonious human relationships mirrored the divine order of the universe. Thus, the presence of music in a love tapestry could imply that the love depicted was not just personally fulfilling, but also aligned with a larger universal harmony, making it seem preordained and blessed. In the Lady and the Unicorn series, the sense of hearing is depicted with the lady playing an organ or a similar keyboard instrument, while her attendant holds the bellows, the intricate detail of the organ, a complex and powerful instrument, and the absorbed expressions of the figures suggest the profound impact of sound. This scene hints at the power of music to resonate deeply, to evoke emotions, and to create an atmosphere of profound connection. It highlights how music transcends the purely visual, inviting the viewer to imagine the sounds that would fill this courtly space, and how those sounds contribute to the overarching narrative of love and desire. Ultimately, the portrayal of musical instruments and the act of music making in medieval love tapestries are powerful visual cues. They suggest harmony, deep emotional connection, artistic expression, and a sophisticated form of courtship. These elements invited the viewer to imagine the sounds and feelings associated with such scenes, adding another layer of sensory and emotional depth to the silent, woven stories of love. Number 4. Subtle gestures and body language. In the silent world of medieval love tapestries where figures cannot speak, their bodies and hands carry a wealth of unspoken messages. Every posture, every subtle gesture, every direction of a gaze was carefully choreographed to convey meaning. Understood by a medieval audience familiar with the elaborate, nonverbal language of courtly interaction, these details offer a fascinating glimpse into the nuanced communication of love, desire, and social graces. The presentation of a hand, for instance, could be incredibly significant. A lady extending her hand, perhaps with a slight upward tilt, might be inviting a gentle touch or indicating acceptance of a suitor's advances. Conversely, a hand held close to the body, or subtly turned away, could suggest hesitation or a polite refusal. A knight kneeling, his hand placed respectfully over his heart, was a classic gesture of devotion and fidelity, a silent pledge of unwavering loyalty. The simple act of one hand lightly touching another, or the delicate brushing of fingertips, could convey immense intimacy and tenderness, hinting at an unspoken bond that was beginning to form or had already solidified. These were not direct embraces, which were often considered too overt for courtly depictions, but rather suggestions of connection, hints of emotional closeness. The direction of the gaze was another powerful tool. Direct eye contact between a knight and a lady, even across a crowded scene, could indicate a shared secret or a mutual understanding that excluded others. A sidelong glance filled with longing or curiosity might suggest a budding attraction or a secret admirer. Sometimes the gaze might be averted, perhaps out of modesty or discretion, even while the body language of the figure suggested an underlying connection. A lady looking demurely down, yet holding a flower offered by a suitor, conveyed a complex message of acceptance tempered with virtue. The eyes, as windows to the soul, were critical in conveying the internal emotional landscape of the characters. The positioning of bodies, even when not touching, told a story. Two figures standing in close proximity, their shoulders almost brushing or one slightly leaning towards the other, suggested an intimate connection or a growing closeness. A lady turning her body towards a suitor, even as her head might be slightly turned away, conveyed an implicit welcome or an openness to his advances. The way figures were grouped or isolated within the tapestry also revealed relationships. Couples set slightly apart from a larger group or bathed in a different light could highlight their unique bond. Consider the 5 tapestries in the Lady and the Unicorn series that represent the 5 senses: sight, hearing, taste, smell, and touch. Each tapestry uses specific gestures to illustrate these senses, but also subtly conveys broader themes of interaction and desire. In the sight tapestry, the lady holds up a mirror, allowing the unicorn to gaze at its reflection. This gesture is not just about sight, it is about self-awareness, beauty, and perhaps even the idea of the unicorn, reflecting her own purity or the purity of the love she represents. For hearing, the lady plays a small organ, while her attendant operates the bellows. This is an active gesture of creation and participation, suggesting harmony and shared experience through sound. In taste, the lady takes a sweetmeat from a dish held by her attendant, or perhaps from the hand of the mythical creature. This simple act of receiving and consuming implies pleasure, intimacy, and a shared delight in sensory experience. It can suggest a yielding and acceptance of what is offered. For smell, the lady is shown creating a wreath of flowers or inhaling their perfume. Her gentle gesture, bringing the flowers close to her face, conveys a delicate appreciation and an absorption in sensory pleasure. It speaks of the subtle allure and beauty of nature, mirroring the subtle allure of love. The touch tapestry is particularly significant. The lady touches the unicorn's horn, a direct, intimate contact that implies taming, control, and a profound connection. This gesture, physical contact, though chaste, is highly charged, representing the culmination of the senses and perhaps the deepest form of understanding or possession within the context of courtly love. It suggests a bond so profound it allows for the touch of the untamable. Even seemingly passive elements, like the placement of hands on specific objects, carried weight. A hand resting gently on a book could indicate a shared intellectual interest. A hand on an animal, such as a dog or a falcon, could suggest control, companionship, or a mirroring of loyalty. These gestures, though subtle, were the silent language of medieval courtly love, allowing for complex emotional narratives to unfold without a single spoken word, inviting the viewer to read the tapestry as a carefully constructed drama of human interaction and unspoken desire. Number 3. The language of flowers and plants. The meticulously rendered flowers and plants in medieval love tapestries are not mere decorative elements. Filling the background, they form a sophisticated botanical lexicon, a secret language understood by the well-educated medieval viewer, revealing hidden meanings about love, virtue, desire, and destiny. Every bloom, every leaf, every tree was chosen with deliberate intent, creating a rich tapestry of symbolic communication. The rose, perhaps the most ubiquitous flower in these woven narratives, carried a complex set of meanings. The red rose, vibrant and passionate, was often associated with ardent love and physical desire, drawing on its long-standing connection to Venus and the intensity of human emotion. The white rose, by contrast, symbolized purity, innocence, and chastity, often linked to the Virgin Mary. Presence of a rosebud could suggest nascent love just beginning to blossom, while a full bloom might indicate a love that has reached its peak. A rose with thorns, though beautiful, might hint at the painful aspects or challenges of love. In tapestries depicting courtly gardens, the profusion of roses often signified a fertile ground for love, a place where deep emotions could flourish. The lily, with its pristine white petals and graceful form, was another powerful symbol, almost universally associated with purity, innocence, and spiritual virtue. Its frequent appearance in scenes involving a virtuous lady or sacred space reinforced the idea that the love being portrayed was chaste and honorable, even in its most passionate forms. The lily's presence could also suggest divine blessing or the sanctity of the relationship, elevating it beyond the mundane. The strawberry, often depicted growing at the feet of figures in the garden, held multiple meanings. Its vibrant red color and sweet taste linked it to pleasure and sensuality, symbolizing the delights of love. Its three-part leaf was sometimes associated with the Holy Trinity, giving it a subtle spiritual dimension even in secular contexts. Its slow-growing nature suggested humility, while its rapid spread could hint at the flourishing and abundance of natural affection. The strawberry, therefore, could subtly allude to a love that was both delightful and deeply rooted in nature. The violet, small and unassuming, often signified humility, faithfulness, and modesty. Its shy beauty and delicate fragrance added a quiet grace to any scene, suggesting a love that was sincere and unpretentious. Columbine, with its distinctive spurred petals, was sometimes linked to melancholy or sorrow, but also to fidelity and perseverance. Presence might subtly indicate the emotional depth of a relationship, acknowledging the challenges that love sometimes entails. Trees also played a significant symbolic role. The oak, sturdy and long-lived, often represented strength, endurance, and fidelity. Its ancient presence in a garden could symbolize the enduring nature of true love or the unwavering commitment of a lover. The orange tree, particularly in the Mediterranean context, was a symbol of fertility, abundance, and prosperity. Its evergreen leaves and bright fruit, often appearing simultaneously, suggested a continuous cycle of life and renewal, mirroring the lasting power of love. The vine, entwining around other plants or structures, was a powerful symbol of connection, interdependence, and fertility, suggesting a love that grows and binds two individuals together. Even the overall composition of the garden, a hortus conclusus, as discussed, further emphasizes the language of plants. This enclosed space, meticulously cultivated, speaks of protection, privacy, and the careful nurturing required for love to flourish. The deliberate placement of specific flora within this sacred enclosure created a rich symbolic narrative, allowing the artist to convey complex emotional and moral messages without overt declaration. In The Lady and the Unicorn tapestries, the entire background is a dense field of these symbolic plants and flowers, arranged in a way that suggests both a wild abundance and a structured design. This mille fleurs, or thousand flowers, background creates an immersive botanical world where every plant contributes to the overall message. The inclusion of a wide variety of flora, from humble daisies to majestic oaks, suggests the universality of the themes encompassing all aspects of nature and human experience within the tapestry's frame. The language of flowers and plants in medieval love tapestries was a sophisticated shorthand, a visual poetry that enriched the romantic narratives. It allowed artists to express nuanced ideas about love, virtue, and human connection through a universally understood natural code, turning each tapestry into a blossoming garden of hidden meanings, waiting to be deciphered. Number 2. The significance of animals. Beyond the majestic unicorn, a rich menagerie of other animals populates medieval love tapestries, each contributing its own layer of symbolic meaning to the intricate narratives. These creatures are not simply decorative. They are active participants in the visual storytelling, reflecting medieval beliefs about human nature, societal roles, and the complex dynamics of love and courtship. Their presence often serves to underscore human characteristics, moral lessons, or the inherent qualities of the love being depicted. Dogs, perhaps more than any other animal, appear frequently, especially at the feet of ladies or accompanying knights on the hunt. The dog was universally admired in the Middle Ages for its loyalty, faithfulness, and unwavering devotion. A small, elegant dog nestled in a lady's lap or sitting patiently beside her could symbolize her own fidelity or the steadfastness expected of her suitor. A hunting dog accompanying a knight represented his noble status, his skill, and his loyal companionship. The dog's vigilant posture or gentle gaze towards its human companion often mirrored the ideal qualities of loyalty and constancy in a romantic relationship. They were silent witnesses to the unfolding drama, their presence a powerful testament to the value of unwavering commitment. Rabbits, on the other hand, often scurrying in the foreground or peering from behind foliage, carried different association. Known for their prolific breeding, they were commonly linked to fertility and abundance. Their quick movements and elusive nature could also allude to the fleeting joys of physical pleasure or the swiftness of desire. In some contexts, they might represent the more unrestrained natural aspects of love, a contrast to the highly ritualized courtly ideals. Their presence could add a touch of earthly vitality and the promise of new life to the scene. Falcons, often perched on the gloved hand of a noble lady or knight, were potent symbols of nobility, aristocracy, and control. Falconry was a highly prized sport reserved for the upper classes and required immense skill and patience to train the bird. The falcon, a predator brought under human command, symbolized the triumph of intellect and discipline over wild nature. In a love tapestry, a falcon could represent the nobility of the lovers, their refined pursuits, and the idea that even passion could be channeled and controlled within the bounds of courtly etiquette. The act of handling a falcon could also be a subtle reference to the taming of affection or the skillful pursuit of a beloved. Deer, whether grazing peacefully or being pursued in a hunt, offered multiple interpretations. They often symbolized grace, beauty, and innocence, especially the does. The stag with its impressive antlers could represent nobility and virility. The deer, as a creature of the forest, also evoked themes of the wild, the untamed, and the pursuit. In the context of a hunt, the deer became the elusive object of desire, its capture mirroring the successful culmination of a romantic quest. Monkeys, though less frequent in formal love, tapestries sometimes appeared in marginalia or in more playful scenes. They were often viewed with a mix of amusement and suspicion. Their ability to mimic human actions made them symbols of imitation or folly. But they could also represent mischief, temptation, or the lower, more chaotic aspects of human nature. When they did appear in romantic contexts, their presence might serve as a cautionary note or inject a touch of irreverence, perhaps highlighting the playful or sometimes absurd elements of human desire. Even common barnyard animals, when present, could subtly reinforce themes of domesticity or the natural order. Sheep and cows grazing in the distance or birds flying overhead created a sense of idyllic peace and natural harmony, suggesting that the love depicted was part of a larger, benevolent natural world. Birds, in particular, with their songs and mating rituals, were often seen as symbols of love and courtship. A pair of cooing doves, for example, directly communicated tender affection and faithfulness. In tapestries like the Lady and the Unicorn series, the abundance of carefully rendered animals in the Millefleur's background creates a vibrant, living world. Each animal, from the smallest rabbit to the largest lion, plays its part in the grand allegory. The lion, often depicted as the fierce yet loyal companion to the unicorn, suggests strength, courage, and nobility. Presence alongside the lady and the unicorn creates a balanced, symbolic dynamic representing both spiritual purity and earthly power. The animals, therefore, were not just fillers. They were integral to the tapestry's narrative, providing a rich, symbolic commentary on the nature of love and the human experience. Number 1. The hunt as a courtship metaphor. Among the grandest and most enduring themes in medieval love tapestries is the vivid depiction of the hunt, a narrative often serving as a profound and multi-layered metaphor for the intricate rituals of courtly love and courtship. These weren't just scenes of noble sport. They were highly stylized allegories, their every detail echoing the complex pursuit, challenge, and ultimate capture that defined the medieval romantic ideal. The medieval hunt itself was a highly ritualized affair, demanding skill, patience, strategy, and bravery from the hunters. It involved tracking the prey, often a noble beast, like a deer or a boar, through dense forests, employing a retinue of specialized dogs, trained falcons, and skilled attendants. The successful culmination of the hunt, the taking of the game, was a moment of triumph and celebration. This elaborate process provided a perfect visual parallel for the equally elaborate and often perilous journey of a suitor seeking to win the affection of a noble lady. Consider the Devonshire hunting tapestries, a series that, while ostensibly depicting actual hunts, can be read through this allegorical lens. The pursuit of the stag, for instance, mirrors the knight's persistent and often arduous pursuit of his beloved. The stag, with its grace and elusiveness, becomes a stand-in for the idealized lady, whose affection is not easily won. The knight, in his shining armor and with his loyal hounds, embodies the ideal suitor, courageous, determined, and dedicated to his quest. The challenges of the terrain, the exhaustion of the chase, and the possibility of failure all reflect the trials and tribulations inherent in a courtly romance, which demanded immense perseverance and sacrifice. These loyal companions, depicted with keen senses and unwavering dedication, serve as extensions of the hunter's will. In the allegorical sense, they could represent the various tools or qualities a lover might employ in his pursuit, his eloquent words, his chivalrous deeds, or the faithful devotion he offers. Their relentless pursuit, often leading to the baying or cornering of the prey, mirrors the intensity of the lover's desire and his relentless efforts to capture the lady's heart. Climax of the hunt, the moment the prey is cornered or taken, can be seen as the moment the lady finally grants her favor, or the lover achieves his ultimate goal. This capture is not a violent subjugation, but rather a symbolic surrender, a recognition of the suitor's worthiness and the culmination of his arduous efforts. In many depictions, the killed beast is not shown in a gruesome manner, but rather in a state of repose, a symbolic offering or achievement. For instance, in the Hunt of the Unicorn series, the final tapestry shows the unicorn not dead, but captive, yet flourishing in an enclosed garden, bound by gentle chains. This imagery perfectly encapsulates the courtly ideal. The capture of the lady's heart was not about dominance, but about a willing surrender to a deserving love, leading to a harmonious and protected union. The elaborate preparations for the hunt, often depicted with meticulous detail, such as the gathering of the hunting party, the sounding of horns, and the careful selection of weapons, also parallel the formal conventions of courtship. These were not spontaneous acts, but carefully choreographed rituals, each step carrying its own significance. Just as a medieval lord would plan his hunt with precision, so too would a suitor meticulously plan his approaches, his declarations, and his gestures to win his lady's favor. The tapestry sometimes features spectators, noble ladies observing the hunt from a distance or within a nearby pavilion. Their presence baptized the public nature of courtly love. While deeply personal, it was also a performance played out before society. The lady's reaction to the hunt, her subtle gaze or gesture, could further comment on the suitor's performance and his progress in the romantic chase. Her approval or disapproval, silently conveyed through her posture or expression, was the ultimate prize. The imagery of the hunt, therefore, allowed medieval artists to explore complex themes of desire, pursuit, perseverance, and triumph within a familiar and a highly admired context. It provided a powerful framework for understanding the nuances of courtly love, where the quest for affection was akin to a noble endeavor demanding all the skill, courage, and unwavering dedication of the most ardent hunter. The interwoven narratives of the chase and the romance ensured that these tapestries were not just beautiful artworks, but profound allegories speaking to the very essence of human longing and the intricate dance of love.